No.
Oh, that's the funny part I was going to tell you is one of my favorite stories ever is telling you about how I'm friendly with your dad and you going from vaguely concerned to something I said hit and you just went, yep, that's him. Everything you said is true. Um,
But did
it's
you wore it with him?
Oh no, whenever he calls me, because he calls me about once or twice a year now, he just launches into Met stuff and like how they're doing. Like when they play the Dodgers, I usually hear from him.
Did
Oh
you
my
do the
God.
podcast with Bruce?
I did. I've done stuff with him before. He's come on my stuff a couple of times. We talked about this, and every time I asked about working, you worked with your daughter. It turns into a story about the Broadway softball team he was playing on,
I
and
listened to it. It was so good. It was so good.
I
That's
learned.
sent me. That's the one you sent me, Jamie.
It is.
That,
Oh, I
oh my
learned
God. So genius too, Joey.
10 years ago, whenever I first talked to him, I learned you get out of the way and let him tell you what he wants to tell you because he's like, why would I not want to listen to these things? First of all,
I know. I know. And
um,
he is like, I mean, beyond a fan. I
yeah,
told Jamie I got to meet Joe Buck, and he and my friend Ed is friends with him. And he was like, I said, oh my God, my dad would be so jealous that I'm here instead of him. And he goes, oh, you don't have to tell me. I know every Bruce Dern story about the Cubs from Ed because your dad told it. And it's like, I love now that even the stories any of us here, we're telling somebody else who then, because I mean, there's no greater sports fan, honestly, than
no.
I've met.
Oh yeah, no, and I think it's interestingly, I think it does feed into when you watch him, when I watch you guys in this, like there's something about talking to someone that has a paternal feeling for you, right? You look at them in a certain way, they look at you in a certain way. So obviously I'm watching this and you guys are looking at each other in a way I never see you look at someone in a movie. I never see him do it. But also you're thinking about all those things that because I know what he talks about, I know what the conversation 10 minutes ago on the screen would have been. And that
Oh,
character still been talking about baseball.
yeah, that's beautiful. Oh, well, clearly you're an adopted son. So
I
it's very beautiful that you saw that part of
yeah,
him because also he's such a, he's so irreverent and he's such a recluse and he's tough and he's, been, and he killed John Wayne. So when
yeah.
I'm like, oh, my dad, he's also like has this massive sweet heart. It's not what I feel like I've always been at the defense of that. So it's kind of
Yeah.
beautiful people seeing it. I remember when I was a kid, Jim Carrey did one of his first stand-up stints on Johnny Carson, and he impersonated Bruce Dern in the Cowboys, which he used to do a lot and was hysterical at it. And it's an impersonation of Bruce Dern tucking his daughter in at night and telling her a bedtime story.
You're like, hmm.
I remember being a kid and being so like laughing and also embarrassed, like
Yeah.
because the impersonation is terrifying and the idea is like I should be terrified.
Yeah.
And it kind of is, dad. Like you talk about sports and he's so hardcore, it's like, whoa, okay, all right. But this sweetness in him, that I get to see, and those of us who love him like that get to feel. It was beautiful to capture that. And can you believe, like, after all these years, I've worked with my mom,
Yeah.
several times, and that's been a big part of my life story as an actor. And thank God I got to work with my father. So grateful.
Oh, yeah, no, he is always very concerned about my dating life. And
I wish he was concerned
Mine
about
too.
yeah, well, he probably is. He just figures you're a grown up. I'm still a kid to him. But no, Jamie, it's funny to me because I wonder how many people have had that thought of why aren't they working together? If one of them is in a thing, why haven't I talked about the other? And I imagine some of it is it has to make sense, right? Both of you have to want to do it, like the production has to make sense. But when you think like I think we can make this happen, is it just like you're kind of like, oh my God, if I can make this happen, I've kind of like hit the mother load because we have in the best way possible no idea what's going to happen.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I've said this to Laura many times. I mean, it's the pinnacle of my career. It was the happiest thing for me to have ever been part of, because it was more, for me, it was more than just, a chance thing that might happen for me, because Laura and I've worked together for so long, and Bruce is family to me. And the fact that it hadn't happened yet was bothersome to me, certainly. And something that I had hoped in one form or another, whether I had anything to do with it or not, that it would certainly happen. And I've had the privilege of watching Laura and Diane work together, and also be a producer on Enlightened, where they had worked together. So to fulfill the magic of seeing them work together was just, I don't know how I would ever top it in my life. It was the most moving day of going to work for me ever.
My favorite memories was, am I allowed to say this? Yeah, it's my family. But I have my few girlfriends, Jamie being one, who, I've grown up with, or we've adopted each other through life. And my assistant on the show was like my earliest childhood friend's daughter, who grew up, she's my goddaughter, and she grew up around my dad. And one of my true sisters, like Jamie, is Sheryl Crow. And Sheryl was going to play, I think, the Hollywood Bowl that night.
Oh, yeah.
Dad and I were doing one of our main scenes together. And she was like, what is happening? I was like, I'm finally getting to work with my dad. And Sheryl showed up. And I was watching Lola, my goddaughter, Jamie, and Sheryl at the monitor, because it's like more, it's beyond the work, right? As you described, Dad, it's like a rite of passage and being with your parent and this shared story. Because for me, every job I'm on is someone's talking to me about my parents.
Oh, yeah.
Sound mixers worked with one of them. Somebody grew up around them, and for those of us who were raised by, filmmakers and actors and crew members in this industry, there is this like kind of beautiful camaraderie of our parents' stories. I was very devastated last night learning that Jenna Rollins had passed away, a dear friend of my mom and a true hero of mine and an amazing woman. And, I think about all the shared stories, like with her kids and me, about our parents, and Jack Nicholson's daughter I'm close to, and like just all like how we've gotten raised by these, forget the talent, right? The storytelling.
Oh yeah, because you have what everyone knows about them, which is its own thing, right? And you hear that, and it's always, I'm sure, weird to be like, yeah, I know that, but also, I know my side. But then you also just have like, yeah, I know what they did when they sat down to dinner and how we talked about it. And yeah, we talked about what I did at school. But if like, Dad, what'd you do today? It might have been like, oh, and then you just hear these names start to come out. And it's that thing that like, you don't want it to be normal, but it has to be a little bit normal. Otherwise you can't communicate. And I think the thing that makes it so special watching this is all of that is clearly on the screen for both of you. I mean, even just as an actress, forget about knowing him, you're now watching like, oh, I'm going to get a Dernsey. Like that's going to come at me and I have to figure out how to act opposite that. I've never thought about that before. I just laugh when people get messed up by it. Now I'm going to be the one. Oh no.
My friend has just started calling me Dernsey. And I was like, now you're calling me Dernsey as my nickname? She's like, well, he made a Dernsey.
Yeah,
you're the ultimate Dernsey.
Actually, that's so true. I've never thought of it that
way. It was Reese. Reese like, we got to call you Dernsey.
You are the ultimate. You're the best Dernsey.
So a side thing from the show, I'm just going to say this to you. Promise me that one day when you want to go on a road trip, call my dad.
Oh, yeah.
Tell him where you're driving to. It is mind-blowing.
He'll
say to you, where are you trying to go? Okay, you want to take highway, straight from memory. You want to take highway 44. You got to go with you're going to go through this town, blah, blah, blah. Probably take about 4 hours and 27 minutes. And it's always, there's no round off with Bruce. And he's right to the
He's
T.
so lost.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I'm actually going I'm doing Telluride in a couple weeks, and because I'm going with a friend, I decided instead I'm gonna drive from Denver. So I have an excuse to now call him and tell him
You've
Also,
got,
he'll talk to you the whole way, which is great. But Laura and I were driving from Nashville to Chicago and got lost at like 3 o'clock in the morning. This was pre GPS and cell phones, I hate to say, but so we
figure it
didn't
out.
have ways to like plug in. So we called Bruce in the middle of the night and we're like, there's road construction and we've turned off at mile marker, whatever. He was like, all right,
he's
go.
like, what street's in front of you? What's the nearest street in front of you? And we told him like street signs. And he was like, okay, you're leaving Texarkana. You're on your way to, like, he knew exactly where we were. It's
Oh
mind.
no. The and you're right about the like the times add up, because I remember this is a while ago when I knew I was going to be in LA for something. I had told him, he said, make sure you tell me when you're going to be. And he said, have you heard of Denny's? So he wanted to take me to Denny's, and I was like, yes, please take me to Denny's. In like when I was in LA, but like I'll be there. It was like a 12:35 thing, and like yeah, if I showed up at 12:30, like 4 minutes later, I saw the Prius pull up, and I was like, oh, he's goddamn, like how does that work? Like that's a thing that there's a cutoff in like how old you are. You'll never be able to do. Like no one, like I'm 37. Nobody in their 30s is able to like time things right. You're 10 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late, if you're lucky. It's this insane thing that I'm sure also is part of what makes good actors. Like this like discipline to figure out like I do this at this time and I show up here and then this happens is like by virtue of also not relying on like computers. Like I know when he's calling me about trivia, he's not looking up the question before he asks me. He's pondering that before he calls me.
And I love to be able to say in front of Jayme now that this is a skill, but I have definitely learned that from my dad. I don't know. I can't rely on any technology. I do think it's how my parents and therefore my brain works, a lack of reliance on a computer telling you something. So people are like, when you go on ChatGPT, I'm like, I've never been on ChatGPT. I can't, I'm trying to figure out this as my job. That's my job. So I don't want to figure out precision,
No,
because precision isn't vulnerable. And, and I love that in my parents. That always kind of comes from the vulnerable, even if it's entirely defensive or tough or whatever, that's from vulnerability too.
It makes for good acting. It makes for good people, because I mean, you guys, there's behind the scenes elements of this show and other shows and other projects that like when you're thinking about who you want to work with, like, yeah, it's a special case with your dad, but like you think about people you want to spend time with. You think about people that like when you go home, you won't be like, oh, son of a bitch. Like it like this is the best job, right? There's no argument, but it can be hard. It can be great. Like you don't want to make it harder. Like, the people who you're like, how do you make this so much harder than it needs to be? They pay you to do this. How are you not like have a dumb grin on your face all the time?
Right. I mean, it's true. I think the cast of Palm Royale is a perfect example for Jayme and I to be producers, to develop this for almost 5 years, and focusing on the Maxine character. And with COVID and everything else, suddenly as Apple wanted to do it and pick the show up and it was ready, and Abe had really cracked the storytelling arc for this show for the first season. I had 2 films to now finish, and it was like, well, how are we now? We're here. What is this cast? What are we going to do? And we had this idea to create this character, which Abe created, that was not in the book, for me to be able to come and be part of it in this way, which was so delicious. But it's like, who's going to be our Maxine? Who's going to be Norma? It's like, okay, Jayme, let's call Kristen. Oh my God, I worship Carol Burnett. Let's call Carol Burnett. And along with Tate and Abe and my amazing manager who also works with him, Jason Weinberg, we're like, I wonder if Ricky Martin would want to play this character. Like, just, it's such a delicious, wild, really inventive cast that comes from who are the people we want to be around. And we love Kaya so much, and she's dearest friends with my daughter, and, you know, love the commitment and professionalism she gives her work. In acting as well as modeling and entrepreneurship. I mean, she's a badass. And so it's like, you know, to find people of the next generation to also work alongside Carol, because you've never seen a better professional.
Right. And
No.
it's
At 91, first one on set, always.
And everybody else is going to be on time and ready, because who's going to let Carol Burnett down? And then you also have these actresses who have worshipped her. I mean, we all have, but specifically comedic actresses who, you know, Allison Janney and Kristen Wiig burst into tears the first time they met her. I mean, you know, Allison Janney manifested on Jimmy Kimmel Live years before this project that one day she just knew she was going to work with Carol Burnett.
Well, she raised us all.
Yeah.
Right? She was literally our babysitter, you know, in our upbringing.
Because it's like for you guys, it's just a compliment, right? When people want to work with you, when people say yes, because it's, oh, I must be doing something right that people want to work with me too. Like, it's a two-way street. But yeah, also, like, it is sort of comforting, right, to know that there is still that, like, celebrity hierarchy that, you know, you can be, okay, people see me and start crying, but then I see someone and I start crying. There's always someone who you go, oh, that's a famous person. And like, you know, Kristen Wiig is a famous person, but to her, as soon as she sees Carol Burnett, goes, I'm just someone who was watching TV. This is a famous person. And it's, I think when you can watch it and appreciate it, it also is like, it's a reminder of like the humanity thing, like whether it's working with your dad, whether it's seeing people react to Carol, whether it's even when you make something just after the fact, when someone comes up and like you have that brace of like, oh, what are they going to say to me? It's nice that you like my work, but I was eating lunch. And then they say this like deeply personal thing to you. It's a strange feeling, but it's also that like, oh, I connected with someone. They think I'm this kind person, and I am, but they're inventing something in their head, but it's still like I'm doing something that matters to someone. And if it matters to the cast and the crew, it's going to matter to people who watch. And that's kind of incredible.
That's really beautiful. And I would add to that, you know, the thrill of working with Alex Friedberg, our costumer, has, for me, started on Enlightened. The watching her build character through costume design, watching how she collaborates with actors, she is so incredible. Her vision is incredible. And watching that, and our makeup and hair team and our production designer, like that is as much the world of Palm Royale as any cast member. They created this extraordinary, seemingly time capsule that is also the present. And that's what's so irreverent and fun about this world, which is why Jayme and I as producers were interested in it when we first read the book, which is, oh my God, this is about today. But it's 1969 Palm Beach, not, you know.
Oh yeah, no, when you can, yeah, no, God, no. No, when you can.
It's like, it's all about not seeing what everybody else is going through. So it's fascinating.
And that's the special sauce. That's like when you, because again, that's, as we wrap, that's having that picture in your head, right? Before anything's ever made, you know, when the book was written, oh, I have this picture in my head, right? When there's a director, when there's a producer, when there's cast, when there's crew, everyone sees a completely different project, right? And then it's always a miracle that it ever gets made, let alone is good. And then for it to be this specific is a tribute to somehow we kind of had the same picture in our head. And, you know, it goes from you guys having a conversation, right? To then eventually someone's talking about money, to like the first time you see a costume, to boom, you're on the set and like you're watching your dad go off script and you're like, this started from a conversation. This started from someone writing a book. This started from someone having an idea for a book and going, no one's going to want to read this because that's what every author does. It's truly incredible. So to actually be here at this moment is
It's
the
a
amazing
miracle.
things. Yeah,
It's a miracle. I mean, it is. I always tell people this, that the worst thing you ever see, the worst movie or television show you ever see, the biggest piece of garbage you've ever seen in your life is a miracle.
Yeah.
It's a miracle that it got made, because
Yeah.
the amount of things that had to go right for anything to get made are infinite. And there are, you know, I'm not into categorizing what's good or bad, but anything is a miracle.
Oh, yeah.
So, and you're right about what's, you know, we should all just walk around with a dumb grin on our face, because there really shouldn't be a bad day. You know, our worst day at work is better than so many days for so many people. It's
The
just what a
privilege, all three of us, of doing what we love. I mean, that's already like we won the lottery, you know.
Complaining I'm doing about film festivals, I already am like, idiot. You should walk into the ocean. Like it's horrible.
Especially if it's Telluride, the greatest festival. Oh,
Problem
yes.
is money. Like I'm a very poor man and I'm much poorer come 2 weeks from today. But it's so incredible.
such clean
Oh,
So it's cool to watch this stuff. And I think in a weird way, we hit on this kind of important thing of so many things have to go right for anything to even go wrong, right? That's incredible. So the fact that things went right here, and so right, and beyond good and bad, the lasting memory you guys have of this is, I think, like the miracle of miracles. So beyond anything else, you should just like be so proud of it.
Thank you so much. And I have to give such deep credit to Jayme, because, you know, when Mike White and I did Enlightened, and we knew we should bring Jayme on board to be a producer on it and all be part of the second season together, there was this idea of producing more, you know, and producing for me had been about getting a vision made that otherwise wasn't going to get made, trying to make small independent film that otherwise wasn't going to get made, sort of connected to me wanting to play the character in it. And Jayme really opened my eyes to have to be on a film that you're part of, can be in the world of television, and you can or cannot be part of it. But wouldn't it be amazing? Not this idea of creating a brand is just not an acumen. Like, I don't even, and Jayme's really pushed that toward, we can be part of this documentary about Pete Souza. We can be part of this animated short that addresses not only gun safety, but the heartbreak and grief around gun violence. And we can build this huge show. And if you're working on other things, okay, but you know, you can be part of it, but look at this world and all these amazing actors that can get to have fun, and a storyteller who gets to do what he loves. And so it's been also beautiful to kind of now sit back and go, of the things we've gotten to make so far, they're also radically different and unique. And that feels so great, because as an actor, even if they're radically different characters, there is a specific kind of filmmaker I love to work with. And for me, they are specific, even though they're wildly different storytellers. It's like they come from the same family. And I'm so lucky to know and have worked with, you know, my heroes that I can now call friend. But this is a much more kind of Wild West open space that has been really fun to watch, and know that people are having that delicious good time, and then we got to be part of facilitating it, from my dad and I's experience to Carol talking about how much it's meant for her. I mean, that's just, you know,
Thank you for that. The shout out Laura, but also Joey, there isn't a better partner to have. Can you imagine?
No,
Give me
you guys are winning. And I think the work,
come on.
yeah, and the work is so good because it's so different. So you guys should be so proud. Thank you so much for doing this, the both
Thank
of
you. And you're going to call Dad about your Telluride road trip from Denver.
I will leave most likely a voicemail in 5 minutes, and we'll see when I get a call back.
Talk to him about Judge getting that 300th. You'll both be furious.
Oh yeah, well, congrats again.
Thank you. It's so great to see you.